After I succeeded in my mission to make Stella Reed fall for me, I fell in love with her. I used the reward for my success to grant her a Midas touch and cure her blindness. From that day on, Stella believed she was destiny's favorite. Riding that wave of supernatural luck, she launched a startup and, in just a few years, became a powerhouse in the business world. But tonight, at her own birthday party, she publicly confessed her love for a young socialite for one of New York's wealthiest families. When someone asked about me, her response was a sneer. Why would I ever be with a washed-up old man like him? I called out to the system. Take back her Midas touch and give her back the blindness that came with it. I wasn't invited to Stella's birthday party. I only found out about it from a photo a mutual friend posted on their Instagram feed. In the picture, she looked radiant and powerful, a sharp, cocky young man half embracing her. I recognized him, Caleb Thorne, the black sheep of the Thorne family dynasty. After finding out the location, I drove over immediately. In the grand ballroom, I stood in the back, watching the scene unfold as a dull knife twisted in my gut. On the stage in the center of the room, Stella was a vision in a tight red dress, all sharp angles and seductive curves. She held a ring, and with a triumphant smile, she slid it onto Caleb Thorne's finger. Caleb, now that you're wearing my ring, you're mine. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Caleb's possessive gaze roamed over her body before he pulled her into a tight embrace. But Stella, he purred, what about Ethan? Is he yours too? At the mention of my name, undisguised disgust flashed in Stella's eyes. Him? He's just some boring, washed-up old man. He could never deserve me. She punctuated the dismissal by planting a soft kiss on Caleb's neck. The crowd below erupted in agreement. Exactly. Caleb and Stella are the real power couple. Ethan Vance is a nobody. He's nothing but a tired old gold digger clinging to her success. He can't hold a candle to Caleb. Stella's right. A woman with her kind of ambition deserves a man who's even more exceptional. Caleb grinned. So, you never love him at all? Stella paused, then let out a sigh. Caleb, you know what I've been through. I have nothing to hide from you. I was the illegitimate daughter, the one no one in my family ever wanted. They sold me off like property to a 60-year-old man, a monster who abused me until I was blind and would have rather died. It was Ethan who saved me. He found the best doctors. He taught me how to be strong. He gave me the resources to start my own business. I was grateful to him. I even thought I liked him. But love? No, it was never love. She took a breath. Honestly, the man he is now, he's not good enough for me. 10 years ago, her parents had thrown her to a powerful man who tortured her until she was blind and barely clinging to life. I was the one who gave her a second chance. But in doing so, I became a living symbol of that dark, miserable past she so desperately wanted to forget. Stella's eyes glittered. Ethan witnessed the most humiliating, disgusting chapter of my life. Every time I see him, I'm reminded of those years I was treated like an animal, trampled on by everyone. It makes me sick. In the world I'd been sent to, Stella Reed was a disposable side character, doomed to a tragic end. After she tried to sabotage the story's heroine, the hero got his revenge, using her own parents to deliver her as a gift to a monster. For 3 years, she was tormented, and just as she was about to die, I saved her. The system's mission for me was simple: make her fall in love with me. So I stayed by her side. I protected her, mentored her, and gave her the tools she needed to stand on her own. The moment she fell for me, the mission was a success. The system told me I could return to my own world. But I didn't go. I had fallen in love with her, too. I was convinced her tragic villain role was just a construct, something I could change. So I stayed, using my mission reward to trade for her Midas touch and have the system restore the eyes that had been destroyed. She came to believe she was chosen by fate. With her supernatural luck, every venture succeeded, every deal went her way. She became a titan of industry, and those who had once tormented her could only marvel at her success. I took a deep breath and started walking toward the stage. As people in the crowd recognized my face, the chatter died down, and they parted to let me through. Sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere, Stella turned around. I walked right up to her, my gaze locked on hers. Seeing me, Caleb's expression soured, and he dropped his arm from around her waist. What are you doing here? Stella frowned, her voice sharp with irritation. I didn't send you an invitation. Stella, I said, my voice steady, we're done. Her frown softened slightly. You saw then? Fine. She crossed her arms. But don't think you're getting any shares of the company. You helped me a lot, I'll admit, but its success now is my achievement. I'll give you a severance check as compensation. I shook my head. I don't want it. Then what do you want? She snapped. Ethan, Offering you money is more than generous. Don't make a scene. Looking at her face, contorted with disdain and impatience, I finally understood why she was always meant to be the villain. She burned bridges, was blinded by arrogance, and was utterly heartless. The years we'd spent together, which I'd thought were filled with love, were just another disgusting memory for her. Fine, she said, waving a dismissive hand. I'll have the money wired to you. You were with me for years, after all. I'm not completely heartless. She gestured toward the exit. Now go, and don't ever show your face to me again. It was true. The very sight of me disgusted her. She no longer saw me as her protector, her partner. She didn't care if I was hurting. All she wanted was to get rid of me, so she and Caleb could start their new life together. Without another glance at her, I turned to leave. I'll be moved out by tomorrow, I said coldly, and I don't need your compensation. I'd feel dirty taking it. As I walked away, I heard her assistant whisper, Stella, maybe you should talk to him. We still need him for the company. But Stella was brimming with confidence. There's nothing to talk about, she scoffed. Even after we break up, he won't be able to leave me. He'd never abandon the company, don't worry. I'm done begging him for help. Caleb, she said, her voice dripping with affection. Now you know. I never loved him at all. Her voice faded as I left the ballroom and walked down to the East River. The cold wind whipping off the water seemed to clear the chaos in my head. System, I thought, can I still leave this world? Negative, host. Then can you take back Stella's Midas touch and return her blindness? Affirmative. I can't pinpoint the exact moment Stella began to change. When I first met her, she was a wreck, a tiny, broken thing covered in wounds, her bleeding eyes filled with the hopeless despair of an abandoned animal. When I carried her out of that dark basement, she was already blind. She clung to my arm in terror, her first words to me a desperate plea. Please, save me. Pity moved me. I hired the best specialist to treat her, but the results were minimal. She could only perceive faint shifts in light. I taught her how to survive, how to fight back. I stood by her as she made every single person who had hurt her in that basement pay. The day she finally fell in love with me, the system declared the mission a success and gave me the option to leave. But I didn't. Her sight was nearly gone, and her company was just getting started. So many people wanted to see her fail, throwing obstacles in her path at every turn. But she refused to bow, her stubbornness heartbreaking. I used my mission reward to give her new eyes and that supernatural luck. Her vision returned, and the Midas touch was hers. Every project she wanted, she got. Every person she met became an asset, a stepping stone. She never failed again. She became proud, radiant, a force to be reckoned with. And slowly, it seemed, she no longer needed me. The tabloids started running stories, linking her with the heirs of various prominent families. When I asked her about it, she would brush me off impatiently. It's just business, Ethan. It's all for show. Don't be so dramatic. After that, the love in her eyes when she looked at me vanished completely. Host, the exchange is complete. Stella Reed has lost the Midas touch. In 10 days, her blindness will return. I stood in our penthouse apartment, lost in thought. It was a massive space, over 5,000 square feet, but my belongings were few. So few, in fact, they all fit into a single suitcase. As I was about to leave with my luggage, my phone rang. It was Chris, my right-hand man. Ethan, they snatched the Seaport development deal. The company has poured so much into this project. If we don't land it, the losses will be catastrophic. I let out a bitter laugh. Chris, I've resigned. The company has nothing to do with me anymore. You'll have to talk to Stella. I hung up. I left the city and flew to Europe for a much-needed escape. As I got off the plane, a notification popped up on my phone from our home's Nest camera system. Unfamiliar person detected at the front door. I paused and opened the app. The live feed showed Caleb carrying a drunk Stella into the apartment, dumping her unceremoniously on the sofa. Mumbling Caleb's name, Stella reached up to pull off his jacket. Just as I thought he was about to take advantage of the situation, his face twisted in disgust, and he shoved her away. After she passed out, Caleb stood over her, scowling. Dirtying my hands with his trash, he muttered to himself, if it weren't for her business sense, I wouldn't bother sleeping with a slut who's been with God knows who. I found myself laughing. Stella had dumped me, the washed-up old man, for Caleb, but he was just using her, disgusted by her past. I wondered how she'd react when she learned the truth. I saved a clip of the video. I didn't know if I wanted to watch her fall, but I knew one thing for sure. I didn't want to see her get away with it. On the 10th day of my trip, I turned on the phone I kept switched off. Over 100 missed calls, 30-something from Chris, and 60 or 70 from Stella. The absurdity of it made me laugh. I was about to turn it off again when a call came through. It was Chris. I hesitated, then answered. Ethan, you finally picked up. Chris's voice was frantic. Where have you been? Something's happened to Stella. He was practically trembling, the words tumbling out. I don't know what's going on with the company. We've lost one project after another. In just 10 days, our credit lines have been frozen. Stella was out at a business dinner when her vision just gave out. She can't see. It's just like 7 years ago. And what's worse, that monster, Silas Croft, took her. I froze for a second, but said nothing. The system had said her sight would be gone in 10 days. It had kept its word. And Silas Croft. He was the man who had tortured Stella for 3 years, the one who had blinded her in the first place. To rescue her from him back then, I'd had to sign over 2/3 of my own company to him. We made a deal. As long as I was around, he was never to touch Stella again. For years, Croft had honored the agreement. He never once made a move against her, professionally or personally. He must have heard I was gone. Stella had blinded him in one eye during her captivity, which is why he'd taken both of hers. But Croft was a vindictive man. Even after she'd paid him back double, he was never going to let her go. In his hands, her chances were slim. But what did that have to do with me? When I didn't respond, Chris grew more desperate. Ethan, please. Before they took her, Stella said you were the only one who could save her. Ethan, where are you? I remained silent. Chris paused, then tried a different tactic. Ethan, I know what she did was wrong, but you two have been through so much. Can you really stand by and let her be tortured like this? She said she had a moment of weakness, that you're the one she really loves. She's begging you not to be angry with her anymore. So, they all thought I was just sulking? I guess it made sense. After all, I used to love Stella so much. Enough to trade everything I had for her safety. But my everything had bought me nothing but her public declaration. A washed-up old man could never deserve me. I wasn't going to be the fool again. Chris, she and I are over. You're better off asking her young, brilliant new boyfriend to save her. Chris was quiet for a moment. Ethan, she and Caleb were just for show? It doesn't matter if it was for show or not. It has nothing to do with me. I knew why Chris wasn't calling Caleb for help. Caleb didn't give a damn about Stella. He'd probably already tried calling him, only to be blown off. I hung up. As I was about to power down the phone, a text from Chris came through. Just 3 words on the screen. Stella is pregnant. I stared at the image of Stella's medical report that Chris had sent me. Pregnant. My mind flashed back to the year I proposed. She had been so happy, holding me tightly. Ethan, she'd whispered, the only thing I've ever wanted is to marry you. My dream is finally coming true. We'll get married. We'll have a child. I'll love you both so much. But after that, whenever I brought up marriage, she'd always find an excuse to put it off. I sighed. The child was innocent. I wasn't sure the baby was mine. But what if? What if it was? If it was true, I would finally have a real family in this world, someone connected to me by blood. For that 1 in a million chance, I decided to go back. When I returned, the company was in absolute chaos. Without her Midas touch, every project Stella tried to secure was snatched away for one reason or another. Even long-term clients were suddenly, inexplicably, terminating their contracts. It wasn't their fault, really. When Stella first started her business, I pushed her to study management day and night, taught her everything I knew, and accompanied her to every networking event. Everyone had been so friendly. But without her supernatural luck, Stella's actual business acumen was average at best. She had just been incredibly lucky. Every deal she wanted, a competitor would either make a mistake or drop out entirely. Her path had been so smooth that she'd forgotten everything I taught her. After managing to calm down the employees, I called Silas Croft. He was surprisingly cordial. Mr. Vance, I haven't forgotten our agreement. But I also heard that ungrateful woman publicly humiliated you. How can you stand for that? I scoffed. What man could, Mr. Croft? If that's the case, then why are you calling me? I took a deep breath. She's pregnant. It might be mine. So, Mr. Croft, you will return her to me, completely unharmed. When Stella was brought back, she was unconscious, her body a canvas of black and blue bruises. I rushed her to the hospital. Thankfully, after some emergency treatment, the baby was saved. But her eyes, just like 7 years ago, were completely blind again. When she woke up, she had a complete breakdown, her voice a piercing shriek. My eyes. No. Why? I could see. Why can't I see anymore? Stella, you're pregnant, I said, trying to calm her. Don't get too agitated. She fell silent for a moment when she heard my voice, then erupted in fury. Ethan, where the hell have you been? If it weren't for you, Croft never would have taken me. Can you stop being so damn dramatic? I was stunned, then let out a bitter laugh. Stella, you think you were taken by Croft because of me? Who else's fault is it? If you hadn't thrown a tantrum and made him think you'd left for good, he never would have touched me. I took a deep breath, ignoring her baseless accusations. You're pregnant. Get some rest. Suddenly, she grabbed my hand. Ethan, what's wrong with my eyes? Is it a relapse? You have to find that doctor for me. She was panicking. I can't go back to the darkness. I'm scared. I'm scared of the dark. I can't be blind. If I'm blind, I'm finished. It was true. After seeing the world for so many years, how could anyone be willing to return to eternal night? Except there was no doctor. Besides the system, no one in this world could heal her eyes. I looked at her terrified expression and said flatly, Stella, no one is unlucky forever, but no one is lucky forever either. So whether it's good fortune or bad, you have to accept it. This is the fate you chose. With that, I left the room. 3 days later, when I came to pick her up from the hospital, her attitude had done a complete 180. Ethan, she began, her voice soft, I've been thinking, and I was wrong before. Caleb and I, there was nothing between us. It was all for show. You're the one I love. For the baby's sake, can we get married? I looked at her face, her eyes empty, but her expression a mask of affection, and I laughed. Stella, is the baby mine? Though she couldn't see, she put on a wounded act. Ethan, how would you say that? I know I made mistakes, but I never betrayed you. How can you doubt me? Tears quickly welled in her vacant eyes. I smiled. Stella, I believe you. After taking her home, I arranged for a caregiver to look after her and went straight to the office. There, I calmly opened the live feed from the security cameras at our apartment. Sure enough, the first thing Stella did was have the caregiver dial Caleb's number. Caleb, I miss you so much, she cooed into the phone. I was taken by that monster Croft. Why didn't you come save me? She was practically purring. I know you love me, but I have to use this baby to keep Ethan in line. As soon as he helps me get the company through this crisis, I'll get rid of it. Caleb's voice was smooth. Baby, you know my father is trying to force me into an arranged marriage. He had me locked up at home. I'm already fighting him just to be with you. This baby, I could never accept it. Stella laughed. I know it's not easy for you. Don't worry. As long as I can sweet-talk Ethan into getting us through this. Once the company is stable, I'll help you take control of your family's business. A wave of relief washed over me. I had gambled correctly. The child was mine, and now I would do whatever it took to make sure my child was born safely. Stella abandoned her previous arrogance, showering me with concern. Her motive, however, was painfully obvious. Ethan, she'd say, can you try to find that doctor again? He cured my eyes before. He can definitely do it again. I laughed to myself. There was no doctor. To make the whole thing plausible, I'd hired an actor to pose as a specialist, and Stella had swallowed it whole. I asked the system, is there any way to restore her sight temporarily? There is, but it comes with a side effect, the system replied. Host, you can convert your assets into points to purchase a pair of time-limited eyes for her. During that time, her vision will be restored. However, once the time is up, not only will she become blind again, but she will also be crippled by the backlash. I was taken aback. Something like that exists. Yes, it's generally used to punish those who betray their benefactors. I was going to tell you about it earlier, but I was afraid you were too blinded by love. I was speechless. Without a second thought, I chose to make the exchange. The time limit was 6 months. I looked at Stella. I can find another, even better doctor, Stella. Are you sure you want the treatment? She agreed without a moment's hesitation. A week later, a staged surgery restored Stella's sight. Overjoyed, she threw her arms around me, her eyes shining. Ethan, let's get married. I gently stroked her face. Let's wait a little longer, Stella. There's too much to deal with at the company. As soon as things are stable, I'll marry you. I knew she was only proposing marriage to keep me on the hook, to make sure I'd manage the company for her. She had realized she was incapable of handling the current crisis on her own. I also knew that in her grand plan, the moment the company was stable was the moment she would dump me, get an abortion, and run off with Caleb. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I took over all company operations, and soon, the business began to stabilize. Stella was now 5 months pregnant, and she came to me with a proposal, a partnership with Caleb. She looked at me, a hint of guilt in her eyes. Ethan, I swear Caleb and I are over. This proposal is purely for the good of the company. The Thorne family was a giant in our real estate sector. A partnership with them would allow our company to expand significantly. However, the true head of the Thorne Corporation was Julian Thorne, Caleb's older brother, and the very man Stella had once wronged. Because of her, Thorne Corp had always refused to work with us. Caleb, on the other hand, was just an illegitimate son. Stella wanted me to help him seize power, framing it as a win-win. If he succeeded, our company would get its partnership. I looked at her for a long time, then smiled faintly. You're right, Stella. I couldn't refuse. I had to play along until the baby was born. If I confronted her now, she would get an abortion without a second thought. I had to stall. The moment I left her, I went to see Julian Thorne. Julian Thorne readily agreed to my proposal for a partnership. He had no love for the brother who was plotting to usurp him. I pretended to agree to Stella and Caleb's plan. On the day of the meeting, Stella insisted on coming with me. I acted indifferent, bringing her along, all dressed up to meet with Caleb. The second he saw us, Caleb smirked. "Ethan, you're a real piece of work, aren't you?" He was mocking me, laughing at the fact that I was still at Stella's beck and call even after she'd publicly cheated on me. I ignored him. "We're here to talk business, Caleb. If you're not interested, I can come back another time." Stella, standing beside me, frowned. "Ethan, Caleb has been spoiled his whole life. He's still young. Why are you getting worked up over nothing?" She shot me a warning look. "Don't forget what I told you." I took a deep breath. "Stella, if you think you can handle it, then you run the company." That shut her up. She turned and shot Caleb a glare. He let out a cold snort, but finally sat down to discuss the deal. All I had to do was help Caleb land one major project to secure his position at Thorncorp. Julian would handle the rest. Soon, the deal was done. Caleb promised that if I came through, he would sign a long-term partnership with our company once he was in power. I delivered, securing the project for him. Just as planned, Caleb was made the general manager of a Thorncorp subsidiary. Julian gave him a long leash, letting him believe he actually had the power to challenge him. But Caleb had a fatal flaw: his mother. She had never been accepted by the Thorne family, but she paraded herself around as a wealthy socialite, constantly hitting Caleb up for money to fund her shopping sprees. Julian told me that this time, she needed $1 million. She had offended the wife of one of Thorncorp's major partners, breaking a piece of her jewelry, and had to pay for it. I suspected Julian had a hand in orchestrating the incident. Caleb didn't have $1 million. He was a creature of pleasure and leisure, having long since squandered whatever the family had given him. But if he didn't resolve this, he would alienate the partner and lose his newly acquired position. Desperate, he decided to embezzle company funds. $1 million was too much to take at once, so he turned to Stella, asking for $500,000. From my office, I watched on the security feed as Stella's face twisted in conflict. I was amused. I wanted to see just how much Caleb really meant to her. To my surprise, she agreed. After hanging up with Caleb, she immediately called Chris to have the money wired. But I had already restructured the company's finances. Even if Chris wanted to, he couldn't access that kind of cash without my approval. Predictably, my phone rang. It was Stella. "Ethan, Caleb's in trouble. You need to give him $500,000 now." I raised an eyebrow. "Stella, Caleb's in trouble, and you're this worried? I thought you said you two were done." She panicked. I'm thinking about the company. He's our partner. If he goes down, we get nothing." I laughed. "Stella, let's stop pretending. If you just admitted you were in love with Caleb, I might actually respect you more." "Ethan, I'm not," she cried, her voice rising. "I told you, we're just friends. I made a mistake with him in the past, but it's over. Why do you keep bringing it up?" She was losing her patience. "So what if I cheated? Can you even compare yourself to him? Back then, you were nothing next to Caleb. Of course I fell for him. Who would want a man who smells like a senior citizen? I'm willing to have your child. Why can't you just let the past go?" I was almost impressed by her shamelessness and disgusted with the man I'd been forever loving her. When I didn't answer, she played her final card. "Ethan, I know you care about this child. If you don't give Caleb the $500,000, I'm going straight to the hospital to get an abortion." I was silent for a moment. "Fine," I said. "I'll do it." This was all part of our plan. Still, hearing her use our child to threaten me for Caleb's sake sent a sharp pang of pain through my chest. But it was just a reflex, a physiological reaction to someone I had once loved with everything I had. It wasn't a feeling anymore. Stella was over 8 months pregnant. I promised her that as long as the child was born safely, I would give Caleb the money, no strings attached. She agreed, and long before her due date, she was impatiently demanding a C-section. To her, the baby's well-being was irrelevant. She didn't love me, so she could never love this child. Fine by me. The sooner the baby was born, the sooner this would all be over. I managed to delay the C-section until she was over 9 months along, but Stella's patience had reached its limit. Caleb was pressuring her, and she couldn't wait any longer. As it happened, the time limit on her temporary eyes was also about to expire. The day of the scheduled C-section was the second to last day she would ever see the world. The baby was healthy, a little girl. I named her Summer, hoping her life would be full of warmth and peace. But since her birth, Stella hadn't glanced at her once. The first thing she did after waking up was ask me, "Did you send the money to Caleb?" I forced a smile, and handed her a document. Sign this, and the fund will be transferred to him. Without even reading the contents, she scrawled her signature on the page. I transferred the money to Caleb right in front of her. She smiled, a smug, triumphant look on her face. Caleb's crisis is over. He'll definitely secure his position as general manager now. She looked at me, her eyes gleaming with condescension. Ethan, don't blame me. People are always striving for better things. I became exceptional, so naturally, I had to choose someone more exceptional. You might be a self-made man, but no matter how hard you work, there's a world of difference between you and someone born into real wealth. That's why I chose Caleb. Don't hold it against me. She waved a dismissive hand. I don't want the child. You can take her. Consider her a souvenir. I let out a cold laugh. Fine, Stella. Just don't regret it. The one thing I'll never regret in my life, she sneered, is leaving you for Caleb. Seeing her victorious posture, I almost felt a flicker of pity. I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth. Caleb was never going to be her ticket to the top, and she wasn't going to escape unscathed. That $500,000 had been transferred from our company's accounts under her name. That same day, Caleb used it, along with the other $500,000 he'd embezzled, to pay off his mother's debt. The next day, he was arrested. Julian Thorne had exposed him for embezzling company funds. With swift and decisive action, Julian had him fired and handed over to the police. The evidence was irrefutable. Not even the Thorne family could save him. Before being taken away, Caleb made one last call to Stella, screaming into the phone. Stella, you fucking slut. It was you, wasn't it? You, Ethan, and Julian, you all set me up. You bitch. You deserve to be blind. You deserve to be tortured by that old man. Why don't you just die? After hearing the news, Stella frantically started calling me. So, on my way to see Summer, I stopped by her room. She had driven away the nurses and caregivers I'd hired, and the room was a disaster. Ethan, was it you? She shrieked. Did you rat him out? Is that why Caleb is in prison? I admitted it calmly. Yes, and he's not the only one going to prison. You are, too. The $500,000 transferred in her name had come from the company. It was, inconveniently for her, also embezzled funds. It was as if a switch flipped in her brain. You set me up? You and Julian Thorne conspired to destroy me and Caleb. Why? Ethan, what did I ever do to you? Why would you do this to me? I looked at the face that was once so familiar, now so alien, and felt a deep chill. Stella, what did you ever do for me? She froze, her eyes filled with guilt at my calm, emotionless question. I played the video I had saved from the security camera. On the screen, she was passed out drunk while Caleb stood over her, calling her a slut. Stella, I rescued you from Silas Croft. I healed your eyes, and I worked tirelessly to build the ladder you climbed to the top. And how did you repay me? I gave a self-deprecating laugh. I get it. I'm 32. I'm not young anymore. But when I met you, I was 25. So what? She spat, gritting her teeth. I just didn't want to be your pet. A golden canary you kept in a cage. Is that so wrong? What if Caleb called me a slut? You think of me that way too, don't you? In all these years, when did you ever treat me like an independent person? I was just your trophy. Caleb is 100 times better than you. At least he's from a real dynasty. I was happy to serve him. I was stunned. Looking at her hateful expression, I finally understood. All these years, all my efforts to pave her path and help her achieve her dreams. This is how she saw it. No wonder. Countdown initiated. 5, 4. I looked at Stella, my voice perfectly calm. In that case, it's time for you to give it all back. 1. Hey, aha, she screamed. What's happening? My eyes, they hurt. Why? Why can't I see? Trickles of blood began to seep from the corners of her eyes, just as they had when I first pulled her from that basement. In the next second, Stella, who had been standing, suddenly collapsed to the floor. It was the side effect of the temporary cure. Her legs were now useless. No, my legs. Why can't I feel my legs? She shrieked. Ethan, Ethan, where are you? Where are you? She clawed frantically at the floor, trying to pull herself up. It was hopeless. She couldn't stand. Watching her struggle in agony, I felt a surprising sense of satisfaction. Stella, I told you. You have to accept both the good fortune and the bad. This is the price you pay for your betrayal. Tears of blood streamed down her face. Ethan, she stammered incoherently. I was wrong. Help me, please. Just help me one more time. The searing pain in her eyes and the dead weight of her legs made her realize the horrifying truth. This time, it was permanent. Ethan, I was wrong. I love you. I've only ever loved you. I never loved Caleb, you know that. You're the one I love, she wailed. I even gave you a child. Our child. For Summer's sake, please just find that doctor who can heal my eyes. I knelt, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. You're right, Stella. For Summer's sake, I won't let you go to prison. Her having a criminal record would complicate Summer's future college applications, background checks. Yes, I had to keep Stella out of jail. But that's it, I said softly. That's all the help you're getting. I took care of the embezzlement charges, squaring my debt to Stella for giving me Summer. I gave her a substantial amount of money and hired a full-time caregiver for her. Then, I made a public announcement. From that day forward, Stella Reed and I had no relationship whatsoever. The company we built together went bankrupt, but it didn't matter to me. For Summer, I started a new one from scratch. As for Stella, I simply watched as she lived out her days and nights in darkness. She called me many times, each call a desperate plea for help. It was impossible. You can save a wolf from a trap 100 times, but it will never be grateful. Sometime later, the caregiver called to tell me that Caleb's mother had been harassing Stella relentlessly. Blaming her for Caleb's imprisonment, she demanded millions in compensation. At first, Stella refused. But Caleb's mother told her that if she didn't pay, she would forbid Caleb from ever seeing her again after he was released. Stella, knowing how much Caleb listened to his mother, gave in, but the woman was a bottomless pit, draining Stella of every last cent and still demanding more. Paralyzed and confined to her bed, Stella could have lived comfortably for the rest of her life on the money I gave her. But for Caleb, she destroyed any chance of a stable future. When she could no longer afford to pay the caregiver left. Soon, only Caleb's mother remained by her side, not to care for her, but to beat and berate her, trying to squeeze out whatever money was left. After a few years, Caleb was finally released from prison. Stella, who thought her savior had returned, was instead thrown out onto the street. The man she thought she could depend on for the rest of her life didn't care if she lived or died. Homeless and desperate, Stella roamed the city in her wheelchair. She called me one last time, her voice broken by sobs. Ethan, I know I was wrong. I regret everything. Please, just save me. For all the years we were together, for Summer's sake. I scoffed. Did I not give you a chance, Stella? But you told me you would never regret your choice. And don't you dare mention Summer's name. You don't deserve to be her mother. Later, I saw the end of her story on the news. In a final act of desperation, Stella had set fire to the house where Caleb and his mother were living, choosing to die with them in the flames. Looking at the charred remains of her body on the television screen, I turned my head away. I couldn't watch anymore. The next day, a letter from her arrived. The last line consisted of a single word. Sorry.